What happens when a king can no longer roar? In the heart of Africa, an aging lion named Raka ruled the savannah with pride and power. But even the strongest fall, and when he does, nature doesn't mourn. It recalibrates. This is not just a story of loss. It's a story of leadership reborn, of wisdom rising, and of the wild teaching us the one lesson we always forget. That balance doesn't break. It evolves. Stay with me, because the moment the king falls is the moment the savannah begins to speak. What happens when a king can no longer roar? In the heart of Africa, an aging lion named Raka ruled the savannah with pride and power. But even the strongest fall, and when he does, nature doesn't mourn. It recalibrates. This is not just a story of loss. It's a story of leadership reborn, of wisdom rising, and of the wild teaching us the one lesson we always forget. That balance doesn't break. It evolves. Stay with me, because the moment the king falls is the moment the savannah begins to speak. Across the golden plains of a vast Kenyan savanna reserve, where wildlife still roams free under the quiet watch of conservationists, an old lion named Raka lumbers slowly through the tall grass. Once the undisputed king of his territory, Raka now bears the scars of time, his mane graying, his steps heavy, but his eyes still fierce. For years, he ruled with wisdom and strength, defending his pride and land with unmatched presence. But nature is never still. As the sun sets one evening, a shadow appears on the horizon. Aries, a rogue jaguar, displaced by climate shifts and driven to compete for unfamiliar ground. Aries crosses into Raka's domain, threatening the pride. Despite his age, Raka does what kings do. He rises. In a thunderous clash, the old lion drives the jaguar away, protecting his family once more. But victory comes at a price. Wounded and exhausted, Raka retreats to rest under an acacia tree, unaware that the true challenge is still ahead. A week later, Aries returns, not to test Raka's strength, but to finish what had begun. In the early morning mist, the ambush is swift and merciless. The king falls, alone, without roar, but not without honor. From the ranger outpost, Dr. Leon watches through her scope in silence. Beside her, Malik curses under his breath, wanting to rush in. But Leon lowers her binoculars and whispers, "Let nature speak." And it does. In that moment, the wild does not mourn. It holds its breath, waiting. The fall of a leader has never meant the end, only the beginning of change. And so, under the rising sun, the savannah begins to shift. The king is gone, but the story of balance has just begun. With Raka gone, the once unified pride fractured like dry earth after the rain. His towering presence had been the glue that kept the structure intact, his roar, a boundary no rival dared cross. But now, uncertainty ruled. Young males began testing each other, circling, growling, challenging for control. Some lionesses stayed close to the cubs, unsure who to trust. Nia, Raka's lifelong mate, tried to hold things together, but even her calm authority was strained beneath the weight of fear and instability. At the research station, the human team watched closely. Malik, young and hot-headed, pressed for action. "We should sedate the jaguar, move him, this isn't his land." But Dr. Leon shook her head. She had seen too many cycles to act on impulse. "This isn't ours to fix. It's nature's balance, not ours to control." The debate grew heated. Malik feared more death. Leon feared disrupting something older than them both, the wild's unwritten law. Meanwhile, tension in the pride reached a breaking point. One young male, emboldened by Raka's absence, attacked another, drawing blood. The roar echoed into the horizon, a signal of instability. But Nia, quiet and watchful, began her own form of leadership. While the males fought, she moved the cubs to safer ground and began choosing which lions to trust. In the shadow of chaos, a different kind of power began to rise, not through force, but through wisdom. The king had fallen. The wild was trembling, but it was not broken. In the days that followed Raka's fall, while chaos consumed the pride, one presence remained steady: Nia, the eldest lioness. Though she had always walked a step behind the king, now she stepped forward, not with roar or violence, but with quiet resolve. She shielded the cubs, guiding them to safety when rival males grew aggressive. She watched the young contenders not with fear, but with calculation, learning their strengths, their tempers. Slowly, Nia began to restore order, not by claiming dominance, but by defining purpose. She separated the reckless from the ready, forging a path of survival through diplomacy rather than dominance. When the tension peaked, Nia led the pride across the dry valley, away from the conflict zone, toward a hidden grove with more stable water and cover. The move was bold, and it worked. As the dust settled, her leadership became evident not through control, but through calm. Where the king once stood with fire, she now stood with focus. From a distance, Dr. Leon watched in awe. "She's not leading by instinct," she whispered to Malik. "She's leading by wisdom." And at the very place where Raka had fallen. As the weeks passed, the conservation team tracked the pride from a respectful distance. What they witnessed wasn't collapse, it was transformation. Nia's leadership had not only stabilized the pride, but allowed new roles to emerge. The young males who once battled blindly began to mature under her quiet rule. The cubs, once vulnerable, now played under the watchful eyes of a structured pride. Nature wasn't breaking down, it was realigning. Malik, once so eager to act, watched in awe as the pride slowly found harmony again. One morning, standing with his binoculars beside Dr. Leon, he whispered, "I didn't think they'd make it." Leon smiled gently and replied, "That's because you thought we were the center of the story. We're not. We're just witnesses." The jaguar, Ares, had not been relocated or eliminated. He simply moved on, as wild creatures do, not as a villain, but as a force in the larger system. The ecosystem had absorbed the shock of Raka's death and adapted, as it always has. Dr. Leon later recorded in her field journal, "When the king fell, we feared the end." But the wild did not weep. It reorganized. Leadership changed form, not purpose. The instinct to protect, to survive, to guide, that didn't vanish with Raka. It simply shifted. In the savannah, balance isn't a fixed rule. It's a rhythm. And the humans finally understood that the greatest role they could play was to listen. Seasons passed, and under Nia's care, the pride flourished. The once fractured group had healed, not into what it was, but into what it needed to become. Among the cubs she had protected, one young male began to stand out, not for his aggression, but for his awareness, his balance. He had watched not just the battles, but the calm between them. He was not born a king. He was raised by wisdom. Now nearly full-grown, he began to take Raka's place, not in title, but in quiet vigilance. One dawn, the pride gathered beneath the acacia tree where Raka had once laid his final breath. The young lion stood there as the sun broke the horizon, golden light catching his mane. Behind him, Nia watched, not as ruler, but as the architect of survival. From the ranger outpost, Malik lowered his binoculars, his voice soft. "That one, he's ready." Dr. Leon nodded, adding only, "So are we." Far in the distance, Ares stood momentarily on a ridge, silent, still, watching. He was never chased, never punished. He was a force, a chapter, a shadow that passed. In time, all things moved forward. As the camera pulls back, the pride moves in unison, strong and steady. Nature had not collapsed when the king fell. It had paused, adjusted, and continued. When strength falls, the world doesn't end. The wild reshapes itself, and in that quiet resilience is wisdom even we must learn. In the fall of a king, the wild didn't crumble, it rebalanced. Raqa's end wasn't the end of the story. It was a lesson in how nature grieves, adapts, and moves forward. While we often seek control, the wild reminds us that leadership isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It's Nia stepping forward. It's a young lion learning strength through stillness. It's a system that doesn't need saving, just space to breathe. As humans, we often believe we must fix every disruption. But sometimes, the most powerful act is to listen, to watch, to let life unfold in its raw, imperfect rhythm. Raqa's fall showed us that true legacy isn't marked by how long we lead, but by what rises after. So if this story moved you, please like the video, share it, and subscribe for more powerful tales from the wild, stories of resilience, of instinct, and of balance that teaches us how to live better.